Thank you.
The amazing Victoria. How many of you feel just the presence of love right here, right now? Let me tell you, if there's one thing I know is that when I feel love, what I'm feeling is God's presence. And just thank you so much for that, Victoria. I was really fighting, belting it out myself, because I knew that would be kind of rude to do with such a beautiful rendition. And what a beautiful thing. It's amazing how God works things out sometimes, you know? Having Destiny, our 7-year-old, reading the daily word about world peace. What a beautiful thing. And I want each of you to know something. From the bottom of my heart, what I believe is that this is the kind of impact that we make as Unity on Debate. A lot of times it's what we get to do out in the world, and sometimes it's also about the spaces that we are creating in the world. And so each and every one of you have created the kind of space that a beautiful girl like Destiny, who is 7 years old, and let me just tell you, she is sharing what our destiny is world peace. So amen to that, right? All right. Well, a couple of things. I also just want to say today is about kindness. And in your tables, for those of you who are in the room, there are these little hearts that were created by one of our congregants, Nancy Harrington, as a kind gift for you to take with you to remember love and the many ways in which love shows up. Also want to share with you, if you didn't get to finish your postcard during the meditation, do so. Not during my talk, please do not. But afterwards, and you can still turn them in on your way out, and we will actually mail them for you. So you don't even have to worry about postage if it's somebody that you want to have it be a surprise and get it mailed to them, okay? So with that, there was some kindness bestowed upon me. A couple of weeks ago, I shared a joke, and it was one of those grown kind of jokes. And I just mentioned, I said, well, listen, you share your jokes with me, you know? And somebody was nice enough to send me one. So here it goes, and you can all thank Eddie Dominguez, who's on our board, for this one. And it says that one Sunday morning, a mother went in to wake her son up to tell him that it was time for him to get ready to go to church. And he just kind of replied, like, I don't want to go. She's like, well, why not? She said, I'll give you 2 good reasons why I don't want to go to church. 1, they don't like me, and 2, I don't like them. And the mother just shocked goes, well, let me give you 2 good reasons why you should go. 1, you're 46 years old, and 2, you're the minister. And I just have to tell you, it is Valentine's Day weekend, and I hope you all know that I not only like you, which is a big deal, you know, to like somebody, but I love you. And I love who we get to be together. And I love the kind of world and the kind of consciousness that we are all a part of creating and bringing even more people into it. So that's my Valentine's to you, and it was a good joke, so I think you're all set, okay? So how many of us were taught that we had to be nice in order for us to get along in life? We just had to be nice, right? Like, I catch myself telling my son that all the time. Well, that wasn't nice, you know? And, well, don't tell them what you really think. That's not nice, right? And there's this idea of us having to be nice, and that sometimes it's better to be nice than to be authentic. Get that? Sometimes we've been taught, and we still live into, it's better to be nice than to be authentic. It's better to be nice than to be who I am. It's better to be nice than to answer the call that is within us, because it may shake some things up, or it may make ourselves or other people uncomfortable. I want to explore with you today why I believe that kindness is a far more powerful way of being in the world than just exhausting ourselves and trying to be nice to the people that are around us. Even nice to ourselves. It's better to be kind to ourselves than nice. How many of us have been in those places where it's like, oh, I don't want to go into those things within me. I'm going to be nice about it. I'm just going to, gloss over them. When the kind thing is to look at ourselves and seek what it is that is being raised up in us, and the things that we have to heal, the things that we have to work through, the things that we have to flow with within our own selves, and with those that are around us and in the world that we are living in. Tomorrow is National Random Acts of Kindness Day. And if you've been around, you know that Unity on the Bay for the last couple of years has really taken on random acts of kindness. And so the postcards today, for example, is part of our random acts of kindness. Because, Unity on the Bay, we're ahead of the game. Random acts of kindness may be tomorrow, but today we get started with our postcards. Some of you brought in things that we're donating to the Lotus House as part of our drive. And I just want to say, even the fact that we're each here, right, in this space, as part of this community, connecting, bringing our love and receiving the love of this community, I think it's an act of kindness to be able to create this space and to really come alive with the potential that is at hand, the potential that is God within us. Now, I know, and I've been sitting with this, that with everything that is going on in the world and everything that we are looking at in the news and reading about or experiencing through people that may be going through hardships, you or yourself may be going through a hardship, this idea of talking about being kind can seem menial. And it may seem like it's not really answering some of the bigger things that may be going on within you, within our country, within the world. And I believe that it is an act of recognizing in faith and in trust and in hope what is ours to be and do out in the world. Because I've shared with you in the last couple of weeks, it's not only about what we do, it's how we do it. It's not about just showing up, it's the energy by which we show up with. And this idea could be really contradictory to some of what may be even going on within you, right? Like, fight fire with fire, everyone gets burned. Right? Like no matter how challenging the situation is, I know, and my faith tells me, God is present. No matter how difficult it is to recognize what it is my thing to do out in the world and how I'm supposed to respond, God is present and here. Whatever it is that you may feel or whatever ways in which you may not feel as hopeful as you would like, God is still here, and we can lean on that, and we can lean on God directing us if we listen, and that God is strengthening us if we show up for it. And there's this beautiful quote by an African-American writer and civil rights activist, Audre Lorde. She said this: "You become strong by doing the things you need to be strong for." We are being equipped to go through all the different situations and challenges and experiences that are for us to go through so that we can strengthen our faith, so that we can strengthen our awareness of the very presence of God, so that we can then move not only through the challenges, but through our faith we can move mountains and believe in the power of community that is like-hearted and recognizes the place of God in the world. And so we are here to build up our understanding. We are here to build up our faith. We are here to lift up the consciousness. And we are here to create a movement based on love and based on kindness. I'm not saying that being nice is not a good thing. And I was thinking about this. I'm going to ask you to suspend your definitions of niceness and kindness. Because we all, I always say metaphysics is all semantics, right? So we each have a definition. So I'm going to share with you my definitions of niceness and kindness and see how they connect with you and see how they relate to whatever it is that you may be going through. And then take what you will from it, right? But this is what I've recognized because, I think that sometimes the way that we define niceness or want to be nice leaves some room for improvement, and that is the nice way of saying that. For me, looking at niceness and the difference with kindness is that I've recognized that a lot of times when I want to show up nice, what I'm really trying to do is people please. Anybody been there and done that? Find yourself where it's like, well, the nice thing to do would be to just agree. And sometimes we don't even say to disagree, but just agree, right? And we feel icky sometimes about that because we've really let go of who we came here to be authentically. But it's that idea of people pleasing. And it comes from a place of, let's face it, not feeling worthy, which comes from a place of thinking that we're separate from God, separate from that Christ nature that is within us, that is the answer to it all. That is the presence of love in the world. And so it's this people-pleasing, it's this idea of having to avoid conflict. It's a very surface level kind of politeness. And we all know when we've been that way, and can't we tell when somebody's being that way with us also, right? And so that's the kind of niceness that I'm really talking about. It's this driven by a desire for approval, because we don't think that we're worthy of God's love unless we are approved by the people around us to be worthy of God's love. But, and some of you may not know this, but I'm going to confess here, I'm a Real Housewives fan. I watch almost every single Real Housewives show. Anybody else here watch Real Housewives? By the way, this is the moment where you can all be nice, because I see some judgmental faces out in the crowd. I'm talking to you, Ray. But there, in the New York version, the old New York version, there was this one housewife. Some of you may know this. I hope some of you get this. But her name was Dorinda, and she was always like, I got to make things nice. I want to make things nice. And she was always saying this when they were off to vacations. I got to make it nice. What she really meant is, I got to make it pretty, like I got to fix up the house. Let's do something fun together. And what she wasn't doing was recognizing that there were a lot of deep issues that needed to be addressed. And so she was like, I always try to make it nice. And they'd get into a huge fight no matter how hard she tried. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. This surface level niceness that doesn't get into the core of what's really taking place within us. And the kindness that is to be able to own our authentic selves and own what is going on with us and look at the ways in which we share that with each other. So being kind to me is rooted in love. It is rooted in honesty, in integrity. Being in integrity with who we are and how we feel and how we want to show up in the world. It is prioritizing truth. It prioritizes connection, because it's not about a politeness that just glosses over. It's really trying to get to the core of like, I want to connect with you from an authentic place. I want to do it based on love, and I want to be real about who I am in this relationship and in this time. And so it is about fully recognizing that we can stand in integrity, stand in our core values, stand in our faith, and do it in a way that is kind. Actually, not do it in a way that is kind, that because we are doing those things, we are being kind. After the inauguration, some of you were around those Sundays, and I got up the Sunday after the inauguration and I said, I just want us all to be kind, right? And I really mean that, and I meant that. And I have to tell you, I felt a little uneasy the week after, and some of you remember that I got up again and I said, hey, by the way, I meant let's be kind, and Unity on the Bay and who we are, we're going to stand for our principles, for our values, for how we want to show up in the world and the kind of world that we want to live in. In my mind, I was a little nervous that when I said kind, you were thinking nice. And so I felt like I needed to say that. And this is a continuation of that, to be able to stand in our truth and to do so in a kind way, to do so in a way that brings people along, but to also stand in the truth that we want a world that works for all. We want dignity and respect for all people. We don't want trans children to be scapegoated. We want people to be treated with kindness, and we want religion not to be weaponized. So we can say all of those things, we can stand in all of those things and be really kind about it, because Christ, the hope of our glory, is our true nature. And that nature is love. And so the more that we get into our authentic selves and recognize what it is bringing up for us, the more that we will be able to bring that love out into the world. And so I shared with you one of my favorite Bible quotes, and I share it with you again. It's from Micah chapter 6, verse 8. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? To do justice is to live in kindness. To love kindness is to love justice. And to walk humbly with God, for me, it's about saying yes to Spirit. What is Spirit asking us to be and go out in the world as? And to say yes to that. And it's also what Dr. Martha King reminded us of that became part of the Unity Tent for Peace and Love a couple of weeks ago, which basically says, remember always justice and reconciliation, not victory. That is humbly walking in the light of God. Now, a Bible story that gets kind of thrown in sometimes with the idea of niceness is when Jesus, after the Beatitudes, he's sharing at the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and this way of being out in the world, and he shares, he says, well, if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek also. In a world that taught us that it was better to be nice, to just get along, for a lot of people that meant just turn the other cheek so that somebody else can slap you on the other side, right? And so much of that we know is not true. Metaphysically speaking, in unity, when we talk about turning the other cheek, it's not about being passive. It's about choosing not to engage with the lower consciousness or the lower vibration of the challenge, but to turn the other way to see if there is a different way of being, if there's a different way of showing up, to direct ourselves not from the place of the hurt, but from the place of the awareness, the consciousness, and the love, to not react from the place of hurt, but to act from the place of discernment. And so we don't have to be nice and allow niceness to dictate our responses. We can be kind, we can be grounded, and we can be strong. And so I'm going to share with you an acronym for kindness, or for kind, being kind, that I really, I'm taking on for myself, and I invite you to take on for yourself. Keeping it real. Keeping it real, to be authentic, to choose authenticity over niceness. Kindness isn't about being agreeable, it's about honesty with love, I also get this, how many of you have heard, they needed some brutal honesty. Brutal honesty is still brutal, right? And so how about some kind honesty? How about some kind love? How about some kind connection? And so showing up with that, it's not about being right. It's about what is in the highest good for all. It's speaking truth with grace. It's speaking up in love for when others can't speak up for themselves or for each other. And so being authentic in the ways that we want to show up in relationship to each other. I inspire connection. I believe that when we choose kindness, what we're really choosing is heartfelt engagement. Again, it's not something that glosses over a relationship. It's something that gets really deep and real in the relationship. It's not a polite interaction. It's I care enough about our connection here and now from the place of the Christ, from the place of knowing that we are one, that I'm going to have real conversations with you, and that I know that in order for me to have a greater connection with you and a greater awareness of that which binds us, we have to show up in the light of who we are, and we have to be honest about that. It's about not necessarily, how many of you have caught yourselves in a conversation with somebody and it's like, you just nod. You just nod because you want the conversation to end. You just nod because you think that's the nice thing to do. And hopefully they think I'm listening, but I'm already thinking about the things that I'm going to do opposite of what this person is telling me to do. I heard a couple of laughs in the room, so I feel like it landed like a reality for some of us. But it's that. And so kindness is about active listening. Like really being present for somebody. Going within so much that you're listening from the space of God. So that when somebody is telling you, and even the things that they may be telling you on a superficial level, you're getting the deep understanding of what's truly going on. And again, sometimes we make it more complicated than it is. I believe that at the end of the day, all of it is a space of, do we feel worthy to know ourselves in oneness with each other and with God? And so this is a way to really inspire a deeper connection with each other. Nurturing growth is what kindness does. It's not just, it's support, not just comfort. I was taught as a minister going through the ministerial program that one of my roles was to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. That was the idea of like showing support and showing love for the people that may be going through challenges and challenging the people with privilege, the people that were, easing through life, right? So that there was always growth. Well, first of all, we're all ministers. We all get to minister to each other. to ourselves first and foremost, and then to the people that are around us. And I believe that this was Jesus' way of ministering. Sometimes kindness means saying the hard things, encouraging a friend to take an action that they've been too scared about, to invite ourselves to live big rather than to live small. And then the last piece of being kind is really about doing what's right. Doing what's right and taking principled action in what we do. See, kindness, I believe, aligns with justice, with truth, and with love, even when it's uncomfortable. And so it's an opportunity for us to speak up about the values and the things that we care about our own well-being and our own health in any situation. Because we're talking about, things that are going on in the world outside of us, but what about the things that are going on within us? Have we prioritized being kind to ourselves rather than being out in the world just being nice and playing it nice? And Jesus himself was tested with this. There's a story of the Pharisees coming up to Jesus with a woman that they said they caught in adultery. And the law, not what they wanted to do, but the law was that that woman was meant to be stoned to death for being found in adultery. And Jesus said, that's not a kind law. That is not something that really I feel comfortable with. And I will speak truth to power and say, that's just not the way of being. That is not the way that my God, my Christhood, is directing me into acts. And so the kind thing to do in that moment was to stand up for that woman, even though the law said something different, even though the people around him wanted to do something different. And what he did in that moment was share that it wasn't just about compassion and forgiveness when he said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. It's also about true justice. And Jesus, in that act of kindness and in that kind of wisdom that he shared with us, I believe this wholeheartedly, he didn't come to save the world in that moment. He came to show us how we were able to save our world. 2,000 years later, we can employ that which he came to teach so that we can be the saviors of our own experience, our own world, and the love that is around us. Adam Grant is he's an organizational psychologist, and actually, he's the reason why I'm speaking about kindness today. Because in August of last year, he posted something on Instagram. He works for the Wharton School, and he does a lot of work with human potential and human generosity and just ways of being and how to really tap into the potential that is at hand. And this one quote just sort of grabbed me, and it said this: the most important reason to treat people well is not what you'll get in return. It's who you hope to become. Kindness is not about reciprocity or karma. It's about character. What is the character that we want to be with in the world? What is the character that we want to show up as? And how do we hope to become? For me, that answer is pretty clear. I'm trying to become somebody that most of the time lives into the Christ potential, lives into and listens to the discernment and the guidance of Spirit out in the world, that loves myself and loves other people so much so that, like I said to you a couple of months ago, when they see me, they're like, there's love walking by. There's kindness over there. There is the manifestation and the manifester of peace. Wouldn't that be a way that all of us would love to be felt and recognized and seen? The Christhood to its maximum potential. And it's a lot. Being kind in a world that sometimes doesn't feel kind can be a lot. Being kind in a world that in some ways is celebrating people that are unkind in this very moment can seem like a lot. And so I want to leave you with a story. It's called the Daffodil Principle. It's a story about this woman who wants to show her mother this field of daffodils that's just beautiful. The mother keeps pushing back, it's just too far away, or I have other things to do. She actually tricks her mom into getting into the car and drives her over to the daffodil field. But it says this: after about 20 minutes, we turned onto a small gravel road, and I saw a small church. On the far side of that church, I saw a hand-lettered sign with an arrow that read, Daffodil Garden. We got out of the car, each took a child's hand, and I followed Caroline down the path. Then, as we turned the corner, I looked up and gasped. Before me lay the most glorious sight. It looked as though someone had taken a great vat of gold and poured it over the mountain peak and its surrounding slopes. The flowers were painted majestic, swirling patterns, great ribbons and swaths of deep orange, creamy white, lemon yellow, salmon pink, and saffron and butter yellow. Each different colored variety was planted in large groups so that it swirled and flowed like its own river and its own unique hue. There were 5 acres of flowers. Who did this? I asked Caroline. Just one woman, Caroline answered. She lives on the property, and that's her home. Caroline pointed to a well-kept A-frame, small and modestly sitting in the midst of all that glory. We walked up to the house, and we saw a poster. Answers to the questions I know you are asking was the headline. The first answer was a simple one, 50,000 bulbs. The second answer was one at a time by one woman. 2 hands, 2 feet, and 1 brain. The third answer was began in 1958. For me, that moment was a life-changing experience, it says. I thought of this woman who I'd never met, who for more than 40 years before had begun 1 bulb at a time to bring her vision of beauty and joy to an obscure mountaintop. Planting 1 bulb at a time, year after year, this unknown woman had forever changed the world in which she lived. 1 day at a time, she had created something of extraordinary magnificence, beauty, and inspiration. Nice doesn't seek approval, kind seeks truth. Nice doesn't avoid discomfort, kindness encourages growth. Nice plays small, while kindness makes an impact. And so my prayer and my hope and my dream and my vision is that we all go out into the world and be kind, not just nice. That the world needs our authenticity, that the world needs our compassion, that the world needs our courage. It is speaking it loud and clear. And so together, Unity on the Bay, 1 daffodil at a time, we will change the world. Namaste.